The Rocky Mountains had always been a place of wonder and danger, but nothing compared to the horror that lurked in Black Hollow. Locals spoke of a ghostly figure that roamed the dense pine forests, a silent killer who left no trace. Only bodies, their throats slit clean, their faces frozen in terror. When seasoned hiker Daniel Cole vanished without a trace, the town of Ravenshire whispered of the phantom again. Daniel wasn't the first to disappear, but his case was different. His cabin was found untouched, his gear still inside. A single message was carved into the wooden door: "You are not welcome here." Sheriff Elias Carter, a man who had seen his share of tragedies, knew he had to investigate. With the first snowfall of the season beginning to blanket the mountains, he had little time before the trails became impassable. Armed with a rifle and a reluctant deputy, Sam Holden, Carter ventured into Black Hollow, determined to uncover the truth. Midsection: the hunt in the hollow. The deeper they trekked into the forest, the more they felt it. An unsettling silence, as if the mountains themselves were holding their breath. The trees stood like ancient sentinels, their branches heavy with snow, whispering secrets to the wind. They found Daniel's campsite by a frozen creek. His tent was torn open from the outside, his belongings scattered. Blood stained the snow, leading into the woods. Carter's gut twisted. No animal had done this. As night fell, they set up camp, taking turns keeping watch. The fire crackled weakly against the howling wind. Sam, clutching his shotgun, muttered, "This place ain't right, Sheriff." Then a noise. A slow, deliberate crunch of footsteps in the snow. Carter's hand tightened around his rifle. "Who's there?" he called, but only silence answered. Then another sound. A whisper. "You shouldn't have come." A shadow darted between the trees. Sam fired his shotgun into the darkness, the echo ripping through the valley. Then nothing. The wind picked up, carrying a sound more terrifying than anything before. Laughter. Cold, distant, unnatural. They weren't alone. Sad ending. The phantom's curse. By dawn, Sam was gone. His sleeping bag lay empty, his footprints leading into the forest. Carter followed them, his heart pounding. The prints ended at a cliff's edge, the snow disturbed as if there had been a struggle. A bloody handprint marked the jagged rock. Then, Carter saw it. A figure standing deep in the trees. Wrapped in tattered furs, its face was obscured by a hood. The phantom. Carter raised his rifle, but his hands trembled. "Who are you?" he demanded. The figure took a step forward. "You cannot stop what was never meant to be found." A sharp pain shot through Carter's chest. He looked down. Blood bloomed across his coat. He staggered, dropping to his knees, his breath coming in short gasps. The phantom loomed over him, whispering, "The mountains do not forget." The last thing Sheriff Carter saw was the sky fading into an endless white. By the time a search party found his body, there was no sign of Sam, no footprints, no phantom. Only the whispering wind through the trees, carrying a single word: leave. The Rocky Mountains had claimed many lives, but none haunted the town of Silverpine quite like the disappearance of Luke Carter. Luke was a seasoned outdoorsman, a quiet man who knew the mountains better than anyone. He had spent his entire life navigating their ridges, their hidden valleys, their secrets. So when he vanished without a trace, one bitter winter night, the town couldn't understand it. The last person to see him was his younger sister, Emily. He had kissed her forehead, promised he'd be back by sundown, and walked out the door with his pack slung over his shoulder. He was heading up to Echo Ridge to check his traps before the next snowstorm hit, but Luke Carter never came home. The first search party went out at dawn. Emily, barely able to breathe through her panic, led a group of townsfolk along the trail Luke had taken. The snow was deep, but his tracks were still there, clear, sharp, too perfect. They followed his footprints for miles until they reached a clearing near Echo Ridge. Then the tracks simply stopped. There was no sign of a struggle, no broken branches, no blood, no sign of Luke at all. It was as if he had walked halfway across the clearing and then vanished into thin air. Emily refused to accept it. "He's out there," she told the sheriff, her voice shaking. "He wouldn't just disappear." The searches continued for weeks. Dogs were brought in. Helicopters scanned the ridges. No one found so much as a scrap of clothing or a discarded supply. Winter swallowed the mountain whole, and the search was called off. But Emily never stopped looking. By spring, the snow melted, revealing what the cold had buried. Hikers found a single boot lodged between two rocks near a frozen creek. It was Luke's. A new search began, but again, nothing. The boot was the only thing they ever found. Emily started having dreams. Dreams where Luke stood at the edge of her bed, his eyes filled with something she couldn't name. "Don't look for me anymore," he whispered. She woke up screaming. Desperate, she hiked back to Echo Ridge alone, retracing his last known steps. The sun was setting when she reached the spot where his tracks had ended. She stood there, staring at the untouched earth, hoping for something, anything. And then she heard it, a voice, soft as the wind. "Emily, go home." Her breath hitched. She turned in a slow circle. No one was there. The wind picked up, and for a brief second the air shifted. The clearing suddenly smelled like pine and smoke. Luke's scent. Then it was gone. Emily fell to her knees, realization hitting her like a knife to the chest. Luke wasn't coming back. He hadn't just vanished. Something had taken him. She never spoke of what she heard that day, but she never hiked the mountains again. And every winter, when the snow fell heavy over Echo Ridge, she swore she could still hear his voice in the wind, whispering a single word. Goodbye. The Rocky Mountains had always carried secrets, but none as strange as the Hollow Peak relic. The legend spoke of an object buried deep within Black Hollow, hidden away centuries ago, an artifact not of this world, something unnatural. Few believed the stories until Matthew Hayes, a geologist studying mineral deposits, vanished without a trace. His last message, scrawled in a notebook found in his abandoned tent, read, "I saw it. It saw me." His best friend, Eric Palmer, refused to believe Matthew was simply gone. A rational man of science, Eric dismissed the myths but knew something wasn't right. Against all warnings, he set out for Black Hollow, determined to uncover the truth. The forest was eerily quiet as Eric made his way deeper into the mountains. Snow crunched beneath his boots, and every step felt like a descent into something forbidden. The deeper he went, the more he noticed things that shouldn't be there. Trees stripped of bark, strange symbols carved into rocks, and a heavy presence in the air, like the mountain itself was watching. Then he found it. Nestled in the roots of a twisted dead tree was a black stone obelisk, no taller than a man, covered in symbols that pulsed faintly, as if alive. It was smooth to the touch, unnaturally cold. When he brushed off the snow, his breath hitched. His own name was carved into its surface. Eric stumbled back, his mind racing. How? Then a whisper slithered through the trees. You were meant to find it. The wind howled, but Eric swore he saw shadows shifting in the periphery. His pulse pounded in his ears. He needed to leave. Now, as he turned, he noticed something half buried in the snow, a jacket. Matt's jacket. His throat tightened. He yanked it free, revealing a skeletal hand still clutching a notebook. He flipped it open, scanning the frantic, scribbled words. The relic isn't just ancient. It's aware. It waits for those who seek it. Eric turned to the obelisk. The symbols now glowed brighter, reacting to his presence. The air felt charged, vibrating with an unseen force. Then the ground beneath him shifted. A deep, guttural sound echoed through the valley, like something massive stirring beneath the earth. The shadows stretched unnaturally, taking on twisted, humanoid shapes. Eric ran. He didn't look back, but the whispers followed. You were chosen. Hours later, he burst from the tree line, panting, his heart ready to explode. He didn't stop until he reached his truck, peeling away without a second glance. But when he got home, he froze. The obelisk. It was in his yard. No footprints, no sign of how it got there. The symbols on its surface pulsed faster now, almost expectant. And in the frost on his window, a message was written from the inside. You brought it with you.